Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to Sunday. It's nice to see y'all. A couple of quick announcements. Somebody asked me a few weeks ago if and when I was going to start the Wednesday evening meditations. I have some stuff going on in July, so that'll probably be the first week in August, and it'll be at 6:30. It'll be more instructions, and it'll be fun. Also, continues to be some problems with the Facebook feed. It tends to just like stop when I guess Facebook has had enough of whatever it is we're doing. If I can't get that to work this week, I'll probably give up on that, and I will just upload recordings from YouTube to anybody who wants to watch it on Facebook. So that's it for that. Nice to see y'all. We're going to continue with our exploration of the Brahma Viharas. We started a few weeks ago. And for those who weren't here or don't remember, the Brahma Viharas are also referred to as the Four Immeasurable Qualities that point us towards awakening and help us bring compassion and awakening to the world at large. And they are loving kindness, or metta, compassion, or karuna, sympathetic joy, or mudita, and equanimity, or upekkha. Last week, we talked about metta, and today we're going to focus on compassion. First, we're going to meditate. So, I invite you to find a comfortable meditation posture. And that would be a posture in which you are alert but relaxed and awake. If you're sitting, relaxed but not rigid. Your back has a natural curve, just sort of let that happen without slumping. Some conscious attention to your posture. You might want to rock back and forth just a little bit to help you find the center, side and side a little bit to help you find the center. And gently close your eyes. And let's begin with a few slow, deep breaths, about 3/4 full, just to help get centered and grounded in the body. Slow, deep inhale, slow, relaxed exhale. Noticing the sensations of the body breathing. Just a couple more slow, deep breaths. And as you exhale, just relax and soften your body to the degree that you can. This is a gentleness practice. We do what we can. Another slow, deep breath, relaxing the muscles of your face on the out breath, letting your eyes rest in their sockets, and letting your breath return to normal. And as you exhale, continue to relax and soften your chest. Let go, relax, soften your belly. Just let it hang. We spend a lot of time in tight belly. Let's offer ourselves the gift of just relaxing that set of muscles. I invite you to notice what it's like to be in this body, in this moment. Notice the touch points, the sensation of your hands resting in your lap or wherever they are, the sensation of your body on the cushion or the chair. Just relaxing into your body. Bring your attention to your breathing. However that works for you. Just resting your awareness on the sensations of the body breathing. Some people focus on a feeling of air moving in and out of their nose. Some people focus on the belly or the chest moving up and down. Whatever is easy. This is a practice of doing what's easy and gentle. And just focus on your breathing. Notice the sensations of the air coming in, the sensations at the top of the in-breath, maybe a pause, maybe not. Sensations of the transition from the in-breath to the out-breath. Notice what happens when you get to the bottom of the out breath, letting your stomach relax. Sometimes there's a pause, sometimes not. Noticing your body beginning to breathe in again. And as you're breathing in and out, gently relax the thinking muscle of the mind. Just let it settle to the degree that it can settle. Don't worry about it. This is a gentleness practice. It's letting your mind soften and settle, letting your thinking mind settle, quiet. If your mind resists, that's okay. Just notice and come back to your breathing and rest your awareness. Rest your awareness on breathing. Just sitting in the present moment experience, breathing in and out. If your mind has wandered off, that's okay. It's a function of the mind to wander around. Just notice thinking without getting wrapped up or involved in the content of whatever your thinking mind is doing. And bring your attention back to rest your awareness on your breaths. If you have to do this over and over again, that's okay. You're just training the mind to know what it's like to come back and focus. It's a process, it's a slow process. If you wander away, just come back, begin again. Your mind wanders off. Just notice thinking. You may or may not want to notice the quality of the thought, planning, remembering, fantasizing. Just the quality of the thought without getting involved in the content. Just noticing the activity of the mind as an observer. And come back to your breathing. If you've wandered off in thought, it's okay. If you notice any harshness or judgment, offer yourself the same compassion you would offer to a child learning a new task. Gentleness, kindness, and as we come towards the end of this sitting, I invite you to meet yourself with kindness, compassion, and notice any change that may or may not have come over your state of being, the way you feel. Maybe you feel a little more centered, a little more relaxed. Maybe not. It's all good. Just continue to breathe in and out, settle into your body in this moment with compassion and kindness towards yourself. And may it be that whatever benefit or centeredness or calmness that came from this sitting help you open your heart first to yourself with kindness and compassion, and to help you gaze at the world through kind eyes. And may it be that the benefits of this practice in this moment radiate from you, from your heart, to the people in your household, to the people in your environment, out into the neighborhood around you, out into the world at large. May it be that this practice, that the benefits of this meditation, help you be more centered and compassionate with yourself and with others in your interactions with people today. And may the benefits of this practice, of this meditation, be of benefit to all beings everywhere. May all beings be happy. May all beings be well. May all beings be safe. May all beings be at ease and at peace. Thank you for your practice. As I kind of expected, the Facebook feed stopped. So I will upload that, the YouTube recording to Facebook later on. So today we're talking about Karuna, compassion, as one of the four Brahma Viharas, or immeasurable qualities. And I'd like to begin that by start by reminding us of the first noble truth, the truth of dukkha, that life includes suffering, one translation, or dissatisfaction. I prefer to think of it as grief. And the truth of that can give us a great deal of peace, because it lets us know that when we are experiencing difficulties, it's just a natural part of the process of being alive day to day. And that these states come and go, and we can still decide that we're okay. It gives us permission to have whatever experience we're having, even when it's difficult. So the Brahma Viharas bring up the question of how do we then meet that? And last week we talked about meeting it with kindness. And today we're going to talk about compassion. And compassion, a definition that I like, when I prepare for these talks, I look around at various writings, and there's probably 100 definitions. If you click into 100 teachers, you'll have 100 definitions of compassion. That's okay. We get to pick what works. It's part of the beauty of the Dharma. It's the practice of being present with another who is suffering, deeply understanding it, and exploring our desire to assist. And it requires, first, that we be able to sit with our own disquiet and suffering. Because to the degree that we cannot meet ourselves compassionately, it's much more difficult to meet other people compassionately. We get triggered, we turn away. So the first front of compassion is self-compassion. Nobody can be surprised that I'm talking about that. Life is difficult. Life is joyous. During the difficult times, It's important to offer ourselves the same kindness and compassion that we would offer anybody else. So, compassion, when we offer it to the world, when we offer it to others, starts with the feeling that we have experienced this. Maybe not this specifically, not the details of the content, but we have experienced this process. And we can help others first by validating that this is just a legitimate experience, that we're allowed to feel this way. And it's not just sympathy. It includes sympathy, but sympathy kind of stops at the edge of, oh, I feel sorry for another. And it includes, but is more than just empathy. When we empathize with somebody, we can actually, to some degree, feel their experience. And compassion helps us do that without getting lost. Chogyam Trungpa, arguably the person who brought Tibetan Buddhism to America, arguably, referred to compassion as an open wound. Compassion, he said, is based on some sense of a soft spot in us. It is as if we had a pimple on our body that is very sore, so sore that we do not want to rub it or scratch it. That sore spot on our body is an analogy for compassion. Because even in the midst of immense aggression or insensitivity in our life or laziness, we always have a soft spot, some point that we can cultivate, or at least not bruise. Every human being has that sore spot. So we can recognize that we all have this going on, and we can bring our sensitivity to that into the world. When we recognize the suffering in the world with an open heart that comes from us being open to our own suffering, it helps us move through the world without taking everything personally. The first of the four agreements, which I'll talk about at some point down the road. Some of you may have read the four agreements. The first of the four agreements is to take nothing personally. And it's easy to be compassionate when we gaze upon somebody who is suffering and we like that person and we enjoy the way they are and we don't have problems with their behavior. But it's more challenging when that's not the case. When someone is acting out, when someone is being aggressive, when someone is being difficult to deal with. And compassion helps us meet that and understand it. Because our feelings and our inner experience will always find expression. Always, always, always. We can express it consciously and intentionally by talking about it, by doing artwork, by writing poetry, whatever. Or we can try to not have that experience, in which case it comes out as behavior. Usually the kind of behavior that leaves us wondering who we are and why we're doing that. And from a compassionate point of view, the way we can bring compassion to witnessing that is we can look at someone and say, oh, this person is suffering. This is what that looks like. Which is a completely different paradigm than, oh, this person is doing that to me. This person is suffering and doesn't have a container, and it's pouring out of him or her, and this is what that looks like. And we can meet that not as something to meet with aversion, but with something a phenomenon that we can meet with compassion. This isn't to suggest that we co-behave bad behavior, because we don't do that. It is to suggest that we can understand the nature of it and where it's coming from. That's why I've always, liked the term acting out. And as a therapist, which I was up until December, people talk about acting out behavior. I really like that because it's such a precise term. We act out whatever it is we're avoiding. And the deeper the grief, the more abhorrent the acting out behavior. And I've always been impressed by how precisely the acting out behavior mirrors the wound. For example, this is an extreme example. When I was a young pup therapist, I was an intern. I had hair. This is black and bushy. And I went to work at a place called the Giarretto Institute. Now, Hank Giarretto was a really interesting guy. He pioneered what is still the prevailing model for treating family sexual abuse, family sexual trauma. And all the interns who went to work for Hank worked individual therapy and worked a group. And there was only one group available for an intern when I got there, and that was the sex offenders group. And I didn't want to do it. My first thought is, how am I going to go into the room with these men and women who had perpetrated children and feel anything other than the desire to hit them over the head with a chair? That was a real edge for me. So I decided, with a lot of help and counsel, to do nothing but listen. And over time, I came to see what is happening. Of course they did that, given where they'd been. Thank God they didn't go shoot up a post office. And I met a man who was particularly difficult. And I'm changing the numbers, but the process is the same. He had molested his daughter at age 8, had molested his granddaughter at age 8, had molested, I think, a niece at age 8. And during the course of getting all of his history, he had been very severely sexually traumatized at age 8 and never dealt with it, never healed it. And here we are 40 years later, and this is what that looks like. This man is suffering. This is what that looks like. Now, at no point does that let us off the hook for our behaviors. He was still responsible for everything he did. I'm still responsible for everything I do, as are we all. But knowing that as an acting out behavior, learning that lesson, that the wound manifests that way, helped me bring compassion to what was a very difficult growth edge for me. Later on, when I went to work at juvenile hall, this is really, once I got to know this kid, he was very, very cool. But when they first brought him in, they had to put him in isolation because he was violent. And he was one of those kids you don't go in a room alone with, that whole thing. And what I came to recognize was this is what his fear looked like. And it's very easy to get wrapped up in a situation like that and say, oh my God, he's acting out, he's terrible. But no, what it turned out to be true, that he's suffering and he's frightened. And every time he's been in a situation like this, he's been harmed, and his suffering looks like this. Then we can be compassionate, because we understand that we too are wounded and we too have suffered. And what is required is healing, not just punishment, but healing, some way to salve that wound. So compassion helps us meet people without judgment. It helps us meet suffering as a witness, not as a judge or a co-behavior, or as something to feel sorry for because we are somehow separate. It helps us to be present for what's happening in the world without falling into the old paradigm of attachment or aversion. We tend to walk through our experience in this culture ping-ponging back and forth between attachment and aversion. Something happens, we like that, we cling to it, that feels good, we're going to hang on to that. And because all things are impermanent, it starts to fade and then we're suffering. Or something happens that we don't like and we meet that with aversion and we can't make it go away because now we're suffering. But there's another paradigm in the middle where we accept this experience, difficult though it is. And compassion helps us identify a pathway out of that trap of attachment and aversion, attachment and aversion, and attachment and aversion, and find a way to be more centered. In a world that is not centered, in a world where there is suffering around us to witness on any given day. All you have to do is turn on the television. Although John Prine said, blow up the TV, and I can't really argue with that. The near enemy of compassion, I think, is codependence. So we have to watch out for that. We get so wrapped up in the suffering of others that we forget to take care of ourselves. I've heard that described as setting your body on fire to keep somebody else warm. We don't want to do that. It is okay to meet suffering, meet grief with a sincere desire to witness it and do whatever we can, which doesn't include everything, because we all have limits. Do whatever we can to alleviate that without taking it on, without making it ours, without adding to our suffering. Because there are some things we just can't address, and sometimes just witnessing is enough. Also, when I was working for Hank Giaretto, among the population was parents who had learned that their child was being abused, but didn't help them, didn't respond. Which was another edge for me. It was like, how can you know that and not do anything about that? And what I started to notice about that is this is what happens when we don't meet our own suffering with compassion. Because in most of those cases, these are people who had a long history of being sexually or otherwise violated or traumatized, and that turned into a blinder through which they could not see what was happening to their child because they just couldn't go there. Can we relate to that? To the fact that we all have wounds that can become blinders in our lives? So then the work, as with the man I talked about, involves taking responsibility and healing the wound. You have to do both. And the path to that is to meet it with compassion, especially with people like this who have been met with nothing but harsh judgment. We can be the ones who can meet the world with compassionate presence instead of harsh judgment. That's the gift we can bring. So I hope I have offered something helpful this morning. And if not, I invite you to be compassionate with me. And as I say over and over again, compassion without self-compassion is incomplete. It's really not that hard to name all of this stuff. It's actually fairly simple. The path laid out is fairly simple. The work involved is extremely difficult. Facing our own pain, nobody ever does that with a smile. I mean, if you do, I'll refer you to the person who now occupies the office I used to have. It takes courage, and it's hard, and it demands that we meet ourselves with the same compassion that we would offer anybody else. It starts there. So, thank you all for your presence this morning. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Alrighty then. Next week, we will talk about sympathetic joy. And I look forward to seeing y'all. It's a Southernism I've picked up since I moved here. Y'all take care of yourselves.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
You will.